you can't talk about the ending of Avengers Infinity War without talking about death. Yeah, this is gonna get grim, people. This is like, all right, let's just dive right into this. Half the Avengers are dead. Oddly enough, all the Phase 1 Avengers, the ones that we were braced to, they're all gonna die, none of them die. It's all the Phase 2 people and later. So, what did you guys...
Except Okoye.
Except Okoye. But yeah, there's several things here. Did you like how they handled the deaths of these characters? Do you think they're permanent? Which deaths did you like and didn't like? Or which Infinity War death, if you will, affected you most? Joshua, let's start with you.
Oh gosh, I lost it and started crying when Peter went down, because he was the one obviously he's the young guy, everyone's endeared to Spider-Man, and to have him just being like, I don't want to die, I don't want to go, and to have him being held in the arms of his father figure, Iron Man, it was just too much.
Yeah.
It was too much.
So I will also say Peter Parker, his death, and this is where I get into some of the issues I have. Like, that actually is the only death that moved me in this movie. I really felt that came as a result of the solid character development that this movie and previous movies have done into that Tony Stark Peter Parker relationship, and you see it happen when Stephen Strange is like, is this your ward or something? Like, they really underscore that dynamic and Tony's protectiveness of Peter in this movie. So for Peter to die and say like, Mr. Stark, I don't want to go, it just has such an emotional depth. And that's the thing that I think was lacking in some of the other deaths, where because this movie is such a big movie, a culmination of 10 years of groundwork being laid, right? Like, there's not enough room to develop every single character and give them character beats here. But I think that, to me, even watching a bunch of these movies recently, like, it was just lacking the emotional connectiveness to some of the things, like Loki's death at the beginning and Gamora's death and seeing T'Challa disappear. Like, it's assuming that I'm deeply connected to him because of Black Panther, which I am, but I would have liked a little bit more emotional grounding in this movie as well, like they did with Peter Parker's passing.
Yeah, so it felt a little bit too much like smoke and mirrors then too. Like, because I think the T'Challa moment is the one that jumped out at me, because I did like the misdirect, because it is set up like Okoye is going and then he's the one who goes. And you can't help but kind of project, you're still very, fervent kind of feelings about that movie because it's still in theaters, about, you're recently connected to it, I will say I agree on the Peter Parker of it all, that is the most effective death. But I don't think anyone is really, they're coming back. We all know that.
Yeah, so this is my thing. I think that Marvel has shot themselves in the foot a little bit, because death isn't permanent in any of these movies, really. Like, with the exception of Yondu and villains.
And Quicksilver.
Right. I don't know. I see everyone die at the end of this movie, and I'm like, it's a cliffhanger. I think that by the end of Avengers 4, characters will die, but this was supposed to be the reset, right?
Yeah.
Like, this was supposed to be the end of it all. And I walk out of this and I'm like, I don't buy it. And I don't, do you guys think that there are people in this movie who are permanently dead, or do you think that there's a world in which, we have our little Captain Marvel SOS at the end of this movie? Do you think that we could potentially come out of this, should every contract negotiation go through and everyone wants to come back for Phase 4, like, do you think they could bring everyone back?
I don't know. I think two things. I think there's two ways you can look at that, is that, one, everybody who turned to ash, their death is up in the air. I think if you died a more corporeal death, like Loki getting strangled, Gamora falling, I think in Vision, I think they are permanently dead. Even Gamora, they could do a Star Trek 3, kind of bring her back. Then we'll get to like what happens in the future of the MCU at the end of this. But I think that there are very practical considerations that I know about. Like, she's filming the Avatar sequels for the next few years. Like, she's not going to be available. Like, I think that there's going to be. I think if you saw them physically, get hurt and their body is broken, I think they might be dead. Everyone else kind of turned to ash, and that to me suggests a magical thing that can be undone.
That's a lot. So yeah, we have like the end deaths of the Thanos Infinity Gauntlet deaths that we're talking about, but then there's other deaths that happened earlier that I think are a different ball game. But as far as the Thanos deaths go, or the Infinity Gauntlet deaths specifically, I should say, yeah, I feel like those are up in the air. I think it's safe to assume that they didn't kill the Black Panther, the character that just made $1 billion.
That's the moment where you're like, nah.
But, I mean, they didn't know the movie was going to go on to make $1 billion, or maybe they predicted it, but they didn't know the cultural impact it was going to have when they made Infinity War, because they shot that last year before the movie even came out. But yeah, so anyways, yeah, we know these characters have a future in Marvel, and that the next movie is probably going to involve some way to try and reverse it, even though the Infinity Gauntlet seemed to have broke and they have to figure something else out. But actually my theory is that it's actually their souls that were taken away and that they're like locked in the soul gem and the soul stone. And I feel like the movie will see somehow the heroes who all died will have to like break through the realm of the dead and come back to the land of the living to join the living Avengers and take out Thanos once and for all. But that's a theory. But as far as the other deaths go, yeah, I feel like that's a good rule. It's like if there's a corporeal death, if there's a body, they're probably dead. And I love what they did with Loki of Thanos when he kills him. Like, first of all, that looked like a painful death, and it looked like for real. There were no illusions.
He snapped his neck right at the beginning. I was like, this ain't a movie for kids.
Yes, that was a great start for Thanos, by the way. But that he said no more resurrections, knowing that we know Loki's kind of known for that. Thor acknowledges that later. But then at the end, he's kind of like, I do think he's gone, and I do think that is a good way for Loki to go, and I do think he's
Idris.
Yeah, and then Idris Elba as well.
Yeah.
But the funny thing when we start talking about as Guardians is that in the comics they're like much more godly beings who are prone to resurrection, and does death really even mean anything?
Odin, is he the only one that can kind of disappear because he's the All-Father?
Disappear.
Yeah,
When he
died,
dies
he
in
went.
Ragnarok.
He turned.
That's a good
mist
point.
Or whatever,
I do think he's kind of a leveled up as Guardian.
Yeah.
But yeah, the others, Heimdall didn't
Yeah, I
evaporate
mean, we
into
did see
mystic
the Warriors
dust.
3.
They didn't.
Yeah, they didn't. Yeah.
None of the others that Hela killed did.
I mean,
that,
but as Guardians too, they're the demigods, and then they're kind of just the regular beings.
But
too.
they're all drinking in Valhalla anyways. They're having a good time, having some mead.
I will say the interesting thing that you'd brought up was that the biggest expectations that were subverted in this movie are that Cap and Tony lived.
Yep. And
your
Black
core,
Widow,
your core Avengers.
Everyone from the entire lineup of Avengers 1, and we'll throw Hawkeye in there. He's not in the movie. Surprise!
That's the best twist of all.
He could be alive. That whole Phase 1, it's coming to an end. Really? Not yet. So I'm curious, just from somebody who kind of covers marketing of movies, like, all right, man, you did the whole hard sell of this is the end on this movie. No, really, next year, this is the end. Like, you can't, and this is a bigger problem I think they're gonna have with that film, is that you can't keep cheating death, especially with Captain America. We went into Civil War thinking it's gonna happen. Didn't happen. Coming to this thinking it's gonna happen. With a Thor Ragnarok, nope, didn't happen there.
I think whatever happens in the next one is final.
Right, but will it matter? Will you
Right.
feel anything? Because it's been crying wolf now. And I think that's really dangerous. Like, you have to make this permanent. And if it turns out that there's multiple timelines they can go into, then it's ultimately a cheat. And I know comics bring people back from the dead all the time, but that's a different medium. And they have been kind of, and I don't know, the general public gets this, but like, you've taught us for 10 years that death isn't permanent. How are people going to respond to it when it finally is?
Ooh, it's heavy. But
Sorry about your grandma. No, just I just think that there's got to be a way that you said they shot themselves in the foot. I would kind of, to go along with that, I think they may have written themselves into a bit of a corner. So it'll be very curious to see how they deal with it in the future.
Yeah, I will say it was weird how they have been referring to Infinity War, specifically Avengers 3, as the end. Like, this is the culmination. And I guess in a way it is, because it's like we're finally seeing a lot of the Infinity Stone threads come together in this movie, and we're getting Thanos, who's been teased for a long time. But this is one half of the end, right? Because if we are going to get deaths of the original Avengers team, like your Caps and your Tonys, then that would definitely come in the second half,
It
right?
just very much doesn't feel standalone to me. It feels like a part one,
Right.
Yeah.
which I thought they'd moved away from. But
Yeah.
I am curious, like for you guys watching or listening, which deaths do you think are permanent and which do you think are reversible? Like, are you guys as cynical as we are that we think that most of these people are going to be coming back, or did you walk out just totally shell shocked and being like, they're gone? Because I think that's the big question is like, do people buy it or are people
Right.
more cynical about it?
Yeah, I know. I admit that the second the movie ended, I became cynical and was like, oh, whatever, these don't count. But in the moment, I was there and I wanted to experience it, and I did kind of feel the weight of those deaths because it was like shock, shock, and then the tears started coming with Spider-Man, and yeah.
Yeah, the last thing I want to say about Death is that there's a whole off-screen stuff that happens with Xandar, and the way Ragnarok ends on a jokey note, even though yes, Thanos' ship comes down, and then this one opens, you spend the first 10 minutes going, okay, everything I enjoyed about the ending of Ragnarok now is like, I feel bad for chuckling or whatever.
Half of them survived. Thor
Half of them
says.
survived. So,
Fingers crossed, Valkyrie and Korg.
exactly. So that's what we thought of Avengers Infinity War. We want to hear what you think. Let us know in the comments. Check out IGN's review of the film, as well as our breakdown of all of the Easter eggs that we could find. And as always, be sure to follow and subscribe on whatever platform you like to watch IGN.